getting started with a bang today here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and live on YouTube at the Team 980. And it's our pleasure off the top to welcome in a guy that I got to cover back when I was on the beat. He is now the co-host of the After Hour with Jim Rohn. He is also a coaching specialist up at his alma mater at BC. 12-year NFL veteran Will Blackmon is with us to talk about the Marshon Lattimore trade. Will, what's up, dude? Appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, what's up, my man? Yeah, I saw you in Vegas. Was it? That's the last time we saw you at Super Bowl?
Yeah, Super Bowl out in Vegas. Hey, this year, who knows? Could I be covering a team that's there as opposed to just laughing about how far away that feels?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves quite yet. But the Marshon Lattimore trade clearly means that they are trying to be serious contenders this year. They're not messing around. When you heard about the trade, both from kind of a big picture, what you thought of Adam Peters being that aggressive, and immediately how he fits in Washington, how do you see this trade?
No, yeah, I mean, my immediate reaction was like, oh wow, like they went and got one of the premier corners in the NFL, and I did not see that happening. I think that's also it caught me off guard. But they went out and got a competitor, man. Like Marshon has been, one of the guys who's been trying to hold it down on his end for a while, and full-time Pro Bowler, Defense Rookie of the Year. Like he's been outstanding. Now the only thing, of course, he's the past couple of years he's dealt with some injuries. Been on IR right now. He's currently dealing with the hamstring right now. So. But I love the fit, because if there is anyone who knows how to coach and handle passionate players like Marshon, it's Dan Quinn. He was, the D coordinator with the whole Legion of Boom guys, and I kind of see him, personality and competitor-wise in that realm. So I think this is a huge win for Washington.
You did a coaching internship of some type with Dallas, right? So you would have been with DQ and Joe Witt. What is it about the way those guys handle defensive backs and teach defensive backs that's different, and how can that help Marshon maybe acclimate a little bit quicker to what they're going to be asking him to do here?
Yeah, so I have pretty good history with both, actually. So I was with when Joe Witt was he was with the Packers. We were there at the same time, so I got to know Joe Witt pretty well. He's actually my punt returner coach when I was on the Packers, and so I got to know Joe really well when he was quality control on defense. And then when I first signed with the Seahawks, that's when Gus went to Jacksonville and Dan Quinn took over. And Dan Quinn, actually, I flew to Seattle early, so he and I used to work out in the mornings at the VMAC over there in Renton. And so I feel like just with DQ alone, like first of all, his style is rare in terms of he knows how to earn the player's trust, and because he's very, very genuine. And I think when you're able to do that as a coach, you're able to win over your player, where they know that whatever you do or say, you're for them. And he has such a really fantastic way of doing that. And the cool thing with Joe Witt is he's very passionate. He just wants to be able to put his players in the best position possible. He's someone who's worked really hard for a long time, and for him to be a DC was long, long overdue, and it was really cool that he finally got this opportunity. So together, them, creating their defense and their system, how they're doing, they just allow you to play fast. They don't really give you too much. They just allow you to put you in position to really play like hair on fire, fast football. And, they really preach like, hey, man, like go full speed. If you make a mistake, we'll correct it. But they do a good job to make sure that you are confident first, and then, we'll coach you up on your assignments.
Will Blackmon, 12-year NFL veteran, with us here on the Hoffman Show. You just heard his history with Joe Witt and DQ. And Will, one of the things that I thought was really interesting talking to Benjamin St. Juste in the spring about, he said that these guys just make the assignment so much clearer. And, hey, if you get beat on this thing, like, don't worry about it. That's not what your responsibility is. You play that, and it allowed him to play fast. That seems so obvious as a coach. Like, yeah, you want to make sure that. Why do you think that there is that disconnect between the way that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn do it and the way that seemingly a lot of other coaches do it around the league? Otherwise, we'd see this more often.
See that? I didn't even know that interview, and I just hit it right on the head. See, that's why you call me, Craig.
That's why I call you. Sometimes you even pick up, which is so very nice of you.
Oh, you're crazy. It's because here's the thing: is a lot of coaches they're so focused on making sure you have your assignment corrected because if you don't do your assignment on the field, and then when you get into coaches' meetings, and then the head coach or the coordinator is looking at you like, well, why didn't he do his assignment? So they just want to make sure that your assignment is done so that they're covered. You know what I mean? And that's the majority, where very few forget, like, they still need to be a confident player. There may be players out there who play really, really fast, like they play fast on the film, and you rather have somebody go full speed, and then, you want to then coach them up versus – there are plenty of guys who know the entire playbook. They know exactly what to do, but then when the lights are on, they don't play as fast. And so they want to just make sure, like, hey, is he playing fast first? Then let me give him a little bit at a time, and eventually I'll give him more of what to do. But sometimes, too, like, you make plays making mistakes. You might because you're going so fast, you might disrupt something and be in the right position. We were playing here at Boston College. We were playing Louisville, and one of our outside linebackers, Quinn, he was completely in the wrong spot, and he somehow ended up getting an interception. So were we tripping on the side? I'm like, man, you were in the wrong spot. Nah, I mean, we corrected it later, but he went and made a play. So that's kind of the deal. It's like, man, just go play fast. Like, we don't want you stressed out thinking about all the checks, and next thing you know, you're thinking and you're not in the right place.
Speaking of the checks, I'll hit this question real quick. And you had to do this when you came here. After you left Seattle, you come here. I think it was week 1 or in between week 1 and week 2, and you had to learn a new set of checks, a new set of guys, how they communicated on the fly. How difficult do you anticipate that being for Marshon Lattimore adjusting to the new defense and the new guys around him in D.C.?
Oh, I think he'll be just fine. And unfortunately, he's injured, but fortunately, he's injured. I mean, he'll have time to sit back and learn and watch and study, but he'll just be fine. Like, he's played enough football where, everything is same as. Like, there's only so many coverages, there's only so many different blitzes and things you can design. So it's just a matter of him just understanding the language, and especially that he's, going to be a starter and a premier player for him. They're just going to, Joe's going to do a good job of kind of just crossing over, like, hey, how'd you play like this? This is what we're going to play here, and so that's going to be key. So he'll be just fine and be able to adjust. And that was my case. Like, I played in multiple defenses, so for me, it was like I'll just learn the language and I'll be fine.
Will Blackmon, 12-year NFL vet, with us here on the Hoffman Show for another minute or two. What does Lattimore's ability in man coverage to be a true CB1 do for this defense and for Joe as a defensive play caller?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely is huge, a huge asset if you can play man coverage. But even nowadays, like, defenses like cover 3 isn't like true cover 3 anymore. Like, guys, you have to match it more and play closer entirely because the ball's getting out quicker. The quarterbacks are better in terms of like the skill set, especially with like the college game coming into the NFL with a lot of RPOs, shotguns, and all that stuff like that in the quick game. So just allow to do that. But also, too, DQ's defense is going to also allow you to have some vision and make plays on the football. I mean, one year you have Trayvon with 11 picks, and next year you have Deron Bland with all those pick sixes. And then obviously we can go back to Sherman, Earl, and all those guys at Legion of Boom making plays on the football. So he's going to be allowed to make more plays in a defense that's friendly, and that's going to really not put so much on him. He's going to be allowed to do his job and make plays.
Last thing for you, Will, is about Benjamin St-Juste now specifically. Like, for him, he goes from CB1 to CB2 on the depth chart. In the modern NFL, in Dan's defense, how big of a change is that for him to not see those number 1 wide receivers as often, or will he still be seeing plenty of them the way that they're playing?
Look, I mean, it's number 1s, number 2s, like, they're all talented, and if he doesn't see the number 1s anymore, then he doesn't see the number 1s. I mean, shoot, I keep referencing Seattle, but Byron Maxwell didn't see the number 1s all the time, and he went and got $60 million. So just make your plays when you make them, and that's it. So it's not going to be a huge deal. It's going to actually help him because then he has somebody on the other side that actually knows what to do and he can learn from.
Will, always appreciate your time, man. I know you got a million things going on, but always really sharp and great to have you back on the show.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's Will Blackmon, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, you can catch him with Jim Rome daily, the after-hour show with Jim Rome. Cool thing that they do after Rome's big national radio show. He is also a specialist up at BC at his alma mater. He's on the coaching staff there. He's got a very cool wine thing. Will's just he's a smart dude who does a lot of cool stuff in football and out, and it's always great to talk to him and have him on the show. When we get back, more of our traditional Wednesdays start, but I guess I should also probably tell you guys what we got coming up because we got a loaded show. Right on the zeros at the top. It's called the top of the hour, which I've been told that nobody knows what that means, Anthony. But I don't know how else to say it. When else would you say it? At 5 and 6 o'clock?
I think so.
Yeah, because we just had Will at 4. At 5 o'clock, Patrick Peterson. Yeah, the future Hall of Famer, Patrick Peterson. At 6 o'clock, ESPN Saints reporter Katherine Terrell. So we are loaded up guest-wise. It is a competition Wednesday, so we'll get to that coming up at 5:30. But next, you'll hear from Dan Quinn, and bonus, typically we hear from DQ and Jaden, and you might throughout the show today still hear from the quarterback, but it's all about Marshon Lattimore. So Adam Peters actually spoke today. You'll hear from them next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We stream live every day on YouTube from 4 to 7 as well. So make sure that if you are not in your car and you're like, hey, you could put on the Odyssey app. You could also pop us on your smart TV. All the different ways you can check out this here radio show. Today, special treat in Ashburn. Oh, hello, Adam Peters. Did you do something that you want to talk about? Sure did. I traded for Marshon Lattimore. The Commanders GM speaking to the assembled press today after acquiring the 4-time Pro Bowler and started off with some opening thoughts on Lattimore and the trade.
Getting Marshon. He came in this morning, got a chance to meet him. He's what we thought he was as a person, as a competitor. And just want to thank really all the people that went into this, and it's a lot. You know, it's not just me sitting there making calls on the deadline day. It's really it's months, and our pro scouting staff making calls and canvassing the league and watching players throughout that whole time. Our R&D department doing a lot of work on a lot of different players, and most of this doesn't even see the light of day for anybody outside of our building. And they do a ton of work and did a lot of write-ups on a lot of different guys, and then we had a lot of people calling around the league, and we have I think we had Martin Mayhew, Chris White, Lance Newmark, Scott Fitterer, David Blackburn, all just canvassing the league for weeks and weeks and just seeing what we could get and if there's anything out there. And a lot of it just goes and nothing happens. But this year we were able to make something happen that we're all really happy about. And when you get to a certain point, you involve the coaches, and they do a great job giving you an opinion of how a player fits into your scheme. And really, there's a lot of people to thank. Certainly Mickey Loomis was really, really professional and really all that he did in terms of his communication and being straightforward. So I thank him a lot for the way he dealt with this. And really the biggest thing is we're really, really excited to get one of the best corners in the entire league and a guy who fits how we play. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He's a dog competitor. He's he's what you want in a corner, and what's really cool is we were able to know a lot more about him with he's one. You guys probably read a cool story about this, but we have 4 players from the Ohio State 2014 recruiting class now, and so we're trying to corner the market there. Those guys are pretty good. I don't know how they lost any games, but so there's some guys in this locker room that knew him already, and so that's going to make this transition even easier, and we're pumped out.
I can imagine why. If you think he's that good, you think he's one of the best corners in the league, then yeah, I would be pretty psyched to have him as well. I know that 2 of the guys that he played with at Ohio State were Terry and Noah Brown. I don't know who the other ones are or if those are the 2 guys that he's talking about, but clearly guys that know him well, and you get that scouting report. Dan would have competed against him, I believe, in the NFC South when he was down in Atlanta. So he's got a little bit of a file on him for sure. And that's the thing, when you have so many different guys in your front office from multiple organizations, there's no doubt there's multiple people that scouted him. And so they have an understanding of who he was coming out and what your pro scout's been watching him all along. And so obviously a lot of intel and a lot of research, and they feel very confident in the guy that they got. But as for how they zeroed in on Lattimore, well, he seems like the best corner that was available, but we know that they want the right guys here. So Adam Peters, I'll let him answer it in his own words.
First you look at the play style and to see, does he fit our play style and the type of mindset we want on the field. And then you really, with your contacts throughout the league, you can get a lot of information on players, and certainly in your own locker room too. So all those things lined up for Marshon, and he was available, which that's the last piece of it, I guess. You can watch him all you want and love him all you want, but if he's not available, he's not available. And we didn't know that he would be available for that whole time, but if you wait till when he's available, then it's usually too late. And so they did all that legwork. Our staff did, just in case he was, and he happened to be, and that's when we were able to make that decision quickly.
So they get him in here. Now the question is, how does he fit? And I think that's an interesting question on multiple fronts, and I'll give you Peter's answer in a second, but just as a bit of setup here, this is a team that has played a lot of cover 2 this year. Lattimore is known as a man corner, but he definitely can play zone. Like, this isn't a William Jackson situation. Like, we're talking about a very different caliber of player here. The play style, the physicality, the size that he has, the speed, the competitiveness, like, we joked about it yesterday, but like, he fights Mike Evans at least once a year. They play twice. At least once is a fight. Sometimes it's both times. And that is who he is. He's got that dog mentality. You'll hear Quinn later call him a dog-ass competitor, which is the best thing that Dan Quinn can say about another human being in Dan Quinn world. So there's a lot to like here, but ultimately you want to maximize each guy. And so I'm going to play you the answer on how Lattimore fits with the team. But I actually think what's interesting is how the team can fit Lattimore, because I do think the way that they're playing might ultimately wind up changing the more and more comfortable he gets, and the more that they realize what they can do around him.
He fits in any defense, which is what's cool about him. And so whatever we're playing, if we're playing zone, we're playing press man, we're playing whatever it is, he's going to be able to do all that. He's a really, really smart player. He's a really instinctive player. He's physical, and those are things we're looking for. He's just a really good football player all around. And so, I think that's really what you're looking for on tape. And then you hear the great things about, how he competes. And, Terry said he was a dog competitor, and so you see it and then you hear it. And so those guys will fit in any locker room, and they don't always come available. So we were excited that he was.
So the other thing that's worth mentioning is Lattimore should be highly motivated coming into this, because I talked about this yesterday and had a bunch of people asking me on Twitter or on YouTube comments or whatever else, Instagram, being like, hey, you said he was a 1-year rental. He's not exactly a 1-year rental. He could be a multi-year player for this team. He also could be a 1-year rental. He has 0 guaranteed money left on his contract. If he comes out and it doesn't work for whatever reason, maybe the dog barks up the wrong tree, if you will, like it just doesn't fit. This has been a cohesive group, and he comes in, the chemistry doesn't work, whatever. I doubt that's going to happen. Like, Terry's not going to sign off on a guy if he thinks that, think of all that Terry's been through. And then if he knows a guy's not the right fit, is he going to be like, yeah, bring him in anyway? No, he's going to express his reservations. And I think they know how precious this locker room is in terms of the rarity of how quickly it's all come together. But the hamstring doesn't get right, whatever. And they just go, we're good. They can cut him. They can move on. $0 on the cap, $0 of Josh Harris's money. They can move on. They could also keep him at the $16 or $18 million number over the next 2 years. They could also be like, hey, you got no guaranteed money, so you're going to play at our price, and we're going to restructure you. And maybe you add on a year, add a little bit of new cash, move around some of the money, and now those cap numbers come down every single year that he's here, but you can keep him long term. But the key part of that is, I shouldn't have really said rental. The Commanders have the power here. So that's something that's really exciting in terms of the future part here, which makes this answer something that I want to hear from Peters, because they've said, for good reason, they want to build through the draft. But if Lattimore is a multi-year guy, how do you strike the balance of free agency and trades to supplement what you're building through the draft?
You're always trying to strike that balance, and I think, I'll give you a long answer, but really we were able to pick up some draft picks earlier this year, and we had a surplus. We had 9 picks, and so that made us feel a little more comfortable doing this. And then also you're looking at the landscape of this next year's draft, this next year's free agency class, and knowing that with some of our corners that are going to be coming up as free agents, that we're going to need to either re-sign one of those guys or dip into free agency or the draft. So you weigh all that, and then you see, okay, is this player better or easier to get than maybe a free agent or a draft pick? And so knowing all that, and then knowing that we had a couple extra picks, and we still feel really good. We still have 7 picks, and I think if you look at the charts, our picks are actually, what we have now is more in terms of points than what we had back in August. So we still feel really good about that. We have what's currently a really high 3rd round pick. We'll see how the season ends, but and that was one pick that we certainly didn't want to give up for this, and so Long answer, but that's kind of how we looked at it.
I do love that little bit of I don't know if it's a shot, but just a little bit like, yeah, we have more picks than we did in August. Tell me more about the Jahan Dotson trade. Just a little small, subtle flex from Adam Peters. There's another order of business that is also fairly important, and that is, hey, is Marshon Lattimore going to be able to play right away? You'll hear Adam Peters give the latest on Lattimore's injury status, and you also hear more from Dan Quinn next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You can hit us on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. Got some folks going in the chat. I'll get to you guys. In a second. See what's going on in there. Next commercial break, I'll engage with the chat on YouTube. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we're focused on other things, like eating our tacos that we're having for lunch at 4:30, because that's the way today has been. Again, Patrick Peterson, the future Hall of Famer, will join us coming up at 5 o'clock. Actually, that was a conversation that I had earlier today, and it was not just me, it was Logan. So you get me, Logan, and Patrick Peterson on the Marshon Lattimore trade coming up at 5. Right now, though, we continue letting you hear from some of the people involved in the decision-making and making the actual trade, mainly Adam Peters. You'll hear from Dan Quinn in a second as well. Now, a big question for Lattimore is, what's his status? Because he's been out the last couple of weeks with a hamstring injury. We will have more on that coming up at 6 o'clock from Katherine Terrell, who covers the Saints down in New Orleans for ESPN. But here's what Adam Peters said about that today.
Yeah, he does. He has a hamstring injury right now, and he just got in today, so we're just evaluating that. And in terms of due diligence, when you're doing a trade like this, and there is a player that could be injured, our trainer will talk to their trainer. They'll allow us to get the medical records and all that, so we understand the full picture, the full scope of the injury, or just their injury history, really. And so we got all that information, and really just taking it day to day, and he won't practice today, so you won't see him out there today. But we'll just take it day by day and put him out there when he's ready.
He was out there in sweats and a number 23 jersey, which, of course, is worth noting after the day that Chris Rodriguez had on Sunday. Chris Rodriguez, actually a guest earlier today on the Chris Russell Show. If you want to hear about the number switch, check out Chris's podcast wherever you get yours. But obviously, the kind of thing that we touched on at the end of the last segment is this is something that is very much for right now. They don't make this kind of move if they don't think he can help them fairly immediately whenever this hamstring injury resolves. But it is also a move that could be a multi-year project for them. So Peters was asked more directly about evaluating older players and the future outlook for Marshon Lattimore specifically.
28, he's still in his prime, and you're right, he's still, in terms of his metrics and everything, he's still running at a really high level, and you see it on the tape as well. But I think one of the things that and I don't think he's going to drop off at all anytime. I really don't. But, if he did, or if any player did, you look at things like how smart are they, how instinctive are they, can they make up for those deficiencies if they get to that point? And he has all that, and really, to be honest, I didn't really even, I'm not concerned about that. And we have him this year and then 2 more years under contract, and we'll adjust that when we need to. But he's, we feel like he's at the top of his game still.
Again, 2 more years if they want to. They can address it. They can bring the cap numbers down. They could just leave it as is. If they want to move on entirely, that is a ball that is 100% based off the structure in Adam Peters' court. Now, Peters did consult with Dan Quinn on this, of course. They have a great relationship. But this is the first time they've really done this in season. They did the Dotson trade, obviously. They made a bunch of moves throughout the offseason, a free agency period, all that stuff together. But what was it like for Peters to collaborate with DQ in the middle of a season when he's coaching a team up to a 7-2 record? Yeah,
DQ, every step of the way we're having a conversation. I'm keeping him updated. He's coaching this team, and he's doing a great job of coaching this team, and he allows me to do this, and so I'll just update him every day, whenever I have a conversation with somebody. And okay, we're looking at this player, we're looking at that player. We'll give a cut up to him so he doesn't have to search through hours and hours of tape. We'll make him a cut up, and so he can look at those players. And he's got a great, he's seen so many players throughout the years, so he's very familiar with guys. He's awesome at evaluating, and so he's evaluated all these guys throughout the draft process too as well. And so, and he watches not just as a defensive guy, he watches, he's a head coach, and he watches the defense of other teams. So he's got great experience, and it's just really constant communication. And, all right, does this guy fit what we do? How does he fit what we do? What are the things we need to work on? And I just can't. I'm so thankful that I'm with a head coach like that has zero ego and a ton of trust, and just fun to be around all the time, and I can learn a ton from him, and I already have.
So there's Peters on Quinn. As for Dan's part in all of this, when did DQ decide, hey, corner, Benjamin St. Juste, you're fighting your face off. Mikey Sandersfield, you're doing a great job outside considering you belong inside. Noah, you're fighting your tail off inside, but let's get some help in here.
This was easy, man. To get and acquire a player of Sean's caliber, the toughness, the physicality, whether it was this month, 6 months, from now, like this is a player that you'd want to be on your team. He stands for the right stuff. He's got an attitude to battle, and really pumped to have him.
Easy enough. Hey, we got a premier talent. Let's bring him in. That is the nature of competitiveness. We're good or we're not good. Either way, we're going to try to get better all the time. That is kind of Dan Quinn's nature. Of course, as you get more and more specific, you get to some of the questions that I think a lot of us have about this move. And when I say questions, not doubts, like legitimate questions. Hey, how does it work? What are the mechanics? Are you planning on just saying, hey, when you're ready to go, you're going to go? Are you going to rotate him in? Like, how does this all work? And one of the questions that I certainly have is, where do they play him? Lattimore this season with the Saints played almost exclusively on the right side. The Commanders have done a little bit more switching. Sometimes it's based off personnel. Sometimes it's a field boundary situation. You have one guy who's playing a little bit more with space. One guy's a little bit more in more contained spaces on the boundary. In the NFL, it's not that big of a difference because the hashes are fairly close together. But what is the position, if you will, that Marshon Lattimore is going to play? And does Dan Quinn even know that yet?
I would say it'd be more versatile, than where we're at. But I want to get a sense for getting into the rhythm here for a while. But I would sense that would be something that we'd move around some.
That makes sense. I tend to think that especially if they're going to play a ton more, or not a ton more, if they're going to play some level more of man-to-man, then they're going to put Marshon Lattimore on the other team's best player. One thing that is worth noting, and we can talk about this more with Katherine Terrell coming up later on in the show, but we had actually we didn't have we played the bite yesterday from Jeff Dowling, who is the Saints sideline reporter on their radio network, and he said Lattimore doesn't really play in the slot, and that is particularly interesting in the NFC East, where A.J. Brown will line up in the slot. CeeDee Lamb lives in the slot for large stretches of games, and so if Lattimore is going to be a guy who ultimately shadows number one corners, he might wind up doing something that he didn't do a lot in New Orleans, which is going into the slot and manning up in there. We'll see. Speaking of the slot, is that going to be more of Mike Sainristil's home moving forward, Dan Quinn?
Still to be determined. And then I'm not going to give away all my cards
right,
on the first
right.
day. I mean, jeez.
Okay. You know what, Anthony? I should have known that's what he was going to say when I hit the button. I didn't get a chance to listen to this live. I'm hearing it the same time as everybody else that's just hearing it for the first time. I should have known that is going to be what happened when I hit the button.
Yeah, they don't give away secrets. They tend not to do that.
No, they're pretty tight-lipped.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I will say this. I thought there was a chance he would say a little bit more because they have said out loud previously, we want Sainristil in the slot. Like, we think eventually long-term that is his home.
But did you hear Joe Witt last Thursday where he said, his play outside is making it tough to like move him back inside. Maybe that was just smoke and mirrors, and that was just the situation, the hand that they were dealt. But now with Marshon, he might have to walk those words back, and we'll hear from him tomorrow.
Yeah, but I also think that one, it could be dependent on Lattimore's health. A certain number of snaps they play. Sainristil some outside, some inside. Noah's playing still a little bit, and they're rotating those guys in and out. They could also say, hey, to limit Lattimore's snaps against two wide receiver sets, we're going to play Sainristil and St. Juste to start. And then on 3, we'll move Mikey back inside and let Lattimore come in. And that's still going to be probably most of your snaps against most teams. Like this team lives in versions of nickel. So like that would still put Lattimore out there most of the time. So there's a bunch of different options they have. Honestly, some of that might not be DQ being coy. He might not know yet. He's been here a day. I'm sure they're trying to figure out what's going on with him and how he rotates into practice and kind of how this health stuff comes out. So that is something, by the way, that DQ was asked about today.
Yeah, that's the assessment that will be here today. So today was our first time, having him be here, and he'll visit, with the training staff and really get an assessment for where he was, just leaving New Orleans and then transitioning into it here. So that's the onboarding process, Nikki, that you're speaking of. It's an important one to make sure that he's really at his best and feels strong and confident to do that, because the player is going to, I'll go, I'm ready. The opportunity, the moment. So we're going to make sure that we don't miss one step, of the ladder as we're going to go and get him ready.
They are thorough, if nothing else. We know that. And they also have a great staff at this point with all that stuff. And whether it's some of the guys that have been here a while, Chad Englehart and that strength and conditioning staff, who's great, to some of the new physios and doctors and everything in between that they've brought in, they'll get him right as fast as they possibly can and get him out in the field. And that might very well mean this weekend. The last injury that we tracked was Jaden Daniels. And it was like, is he? Will he? Won't he? And then all of a sudden he played on Sunday. So we know that they can do that. We also know they'll do right by the player. Brian Robinson Jr. obviously missed last weekend's game, and they wound up being quite all right without him. Now, the last piece of this is the locker room, the chemistry. And you'll hear a little bit more about that element of the Marshon Lattimore edition from Dan Quinn and Adam Peters next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we are talking about Marshon Lattimore, the new acquisition from the New Orleans Saints coming to the Commanders, and we'll talk about it with the future Hall of Famer, our Odyssey Sports insider, Patrick Peterson, coming up at 5 o'clock. What's he know about cornerback play? Katherine Terrell also joins us at 6, ESPN Saints reporter with the inside on what it's been like to cover Lattimore and see if she has any information on that hamstring injury that he has been dealing with the last couple of weeks. Now, the big, I think, consternation about any trade, forget the specifics. People, I think, are obviously very excited about Marshon Lattimore. But the big thing that I heard when we took calls about trades beforehand was, oh, you got to get the right guy. Like, we trust Peters. You got to make sure that he's the right fit in the locker room. And I think some teams get that really wrong. Some teams look at themselves with strong locker rooms and they go, we can take on anybody. And that can work if you have the right number of knuckleheads in the locker room, so to speak. I know there are teams in the NBA that have a strict one knucklehead per locker room rule where they were willing to take on someone who has a bit of a whatever. Maybe it's not even like a human personal thing. They're just not the hardest worker or whatever, but they're super talented. But if you surround them with the right guys, you actually get the most out of that player. And if they're super talented, well, then it's worth it. I think Dan Quinn and Adam Peters see this differently. I think they say, we don't want any knuckleheads of any variety. If you don't fit us, we don't want you because you will mess it up. One bad apple can ruin the bunch. And I think that is often way more true in an NFL locker room because of all the different position groups and just the way the season is, the way practice is, all that kind of stuff. Just if I'm doing it, I'm doing it the way that these guys do it. So getting intel on a guy is pretty important. Hard to do when he is on another team. Good thing they've got some former teammates that are able to speak about him. That at one point were on his team at Ohio State specifically. Adam Peters asked about getting insight from Marshon Lattimore, from Terry McLaurin, from Noah Brown, and I know Jalen Holmes, thanks to Jordan on YouTube, I think it was, who shouted that one out, and the other teammates that played with him at Ohio State.
That Ohio State guys they're legit dudes, and you trust their opinion, and I think it would be probably not, I'm going to say foolish, but I think you'd be missing something if you didn't ask them, and they had something to tell you that you should have known before you made the deal. So I'll keep those conversations private, but yeah, we definitely tapped into that, and everything was good. I can tell you that.
I was about to say, you can keep the conversations private, Adam, but we know that they were positive because you made the trade. Unless it comes out later that actually Terry told Adam Peters that guy sucked, and Adam was like, well, I think you suck. I'm doing it anyway. I think we know how Adam Peters thinks about Terry McLaurin. That didn't happen. Very clearly, the reports were good. They think he's going to be a good fit in the locker room. But it's on Dan Quinn and everything that he set up to make that a reality. So how does he make sure, especially midseason, that a new guy is brought in and understands the standard and how things are done in this locker room and the chemistry continues to be a good concoction?
Yeah, Adam is very mindful of that. And he knows the importance of that with the team, and he knows, I share that opinion with him. And so through the draft, through a trade or acquiring somebody that's not with a team, that could have been on the practice squad, they go through a pretty exhaustive, step-by-step process. Having the right people is the first thing. If that's the first thing to get right. And so that's where, if that part's not right, then that's the end of the line. And that goes for everybody that we bring in here. We want to make sure coming here is, unique and a really cool experience. And I told him today in front of the team, I said, you can ask anybody here, man. We're all here to help and support you and onboard you fast. That means rookies or a vet. Like, we're all on the same page here. So it doesn't have to be, I'm not going to talk to him as a rookie. No. That ain't how we roll, man. Like, everybody on this team, we're here to help support anybody that comes in, and the message will be the same from all the guys. And so I thought that was strong for him to know that he's coming into a place that people really support the hell out of one another.
I think that is especially important at that position because, Anthony, do you know, has it crossed your mind yet, one of the most important people to Marshon Lattimore in this transition, who he is? and what complications there are with that relationship?
I don't.
Think about it. Who's really important to Marshon Lattimore? The other corners, yeah?
Yeah.
Including Mikey Sanders still, who went to school at?
Oh, Michigan.
Yeah.
Ah.
I'm Mikey Sanders still, Michigan man. Nice to meet you. I'm here to help you with your onboarding process.
That's hilarious.
But we know that's how Mikey is, right? Like, Mikey has emerged as a leader on this team because of how he handles his business. And, you know, Marshon Lattimore is going to have to be all right with a rookie from Michigan being like, hey, man, this is how we roll. By the way, another Big Ten guy in Benjamin St. Juste from Minnesota. So it's kind of funny how the NFL works like that. But obviously, that's not going to be an issue. It's a tongue-in-cheek, funny little bit. But I think to the substance of what DQ said there, like, no, once you're here, this ain't what is it? The Olive Garden. Once you're here, your family. Was that was their slogan back in the day, wasn't it? We're gotten real sideways in this segment.
I've only been to Olive Garden once, so I don't know.
I don't know. I think that was their thing. Wait, when you're here, your family. But like, once you're here, you're a commander, right? It's not, oh, that guy's a rookie. That's this. Like, Jaden and Mikey Sanders still have really big impacts on everybody on this roster. You have other guys in that rookie class. You have other guys that just got here. You have other guys that have been around like Terry for a long time, all of whom have roles to play here in the onboarding process, the locker room, the actual defense, the ability to be on the same page, to understand the way that practice is structured and the work that gets done, the demands. It all comes back to everyone upholding the standard. And that is something they've been brilliant at. And it's why a guy who is super competitive like Lattimore, I think will thrive here. That's actually something I want to talk about with Katherine Terrell at 6 o'clock from ESPN is Lattimore. I heard Mike Sando put it, I thought, really well on the Athletic Football Show today when they were talking about this trade. Some guys, you're just going to get their best every single day. Those are the elite of the elite from the mindset standpoint. You have the absolute best of the best that no matter what, they're going to come to work every single day and give you the same exact thing. And some of those guys, by the way, they're the end of the roster guys. When you get stars that are like that, that's when you get your absolute superstars. Like that is the separator, right? The consistency, the attention to detail, all of that. Some guys have to do that because their talent level is not very high, and that's how they stay in the league. So for Lattimore, he's not necessarily been that guy. He's a guy whose play has fluctuated at times with his competition. But that's also a lot easier to do the last couple of years in New Orleans where they haven't been that good. This was a guy that was money on one of the best defenses in football when Drew Brees was a heinous pass interference missed call against the Rams away from taking them to a Super Bowl. Like, Marshon Lattimore's on that team. And so if you can all of a sudden get the best of Marshon Lattimore simply by the fact that he's back in a competitive situation, like, we're talking about an excellent player as long as he is on the field, still at this point in his career, still, frankly, in his prime at the age of 28. When we get back, we're going to talk about it even more because this is basically what we're talking about today. Katherine Terrell at 6 o'clock. We got our pick six at 6 following Katherine. The one detour we take specifically from Lattimore in the trade is our Competition Wednesday coming up at 5:30. But up next, you do not want to miss this. This morning, Logan and I got the chance to talk with the future Hall of Famer, Patrick Peterson, our Odyssey Sports NFL insider, fresh out of the NFL. So fresh, in fact, that he played for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. So we talked about Lattimore, and then we shifted things to what makes Mike Tomlin and the Steelers special. You'll hear that conversation next for Not My Beat here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 30 minutes from now, Competition Wednesday. I do not know how we did. Anthony, do you have any idea whether that wheel is going to be staying on your side, the wheel of mediocre punishment?
That's a great question, Craig.
I don't know. We're going to find out together coming up at 5:30, and then we'll spin it. We'll make our new picks at 5:45. Right now, though, earlier today, got the chance to catch up with Patrick Peterson, our Odyssey Sports NFL insider. Second time for him on the show. This time, though, Logan along for the ride. And what do you think we talked about with the future Hall of Fame quarterback, the Marshon Lattimore trade, as well as the matchup this weekend between the Commanders and Steelers, and that is today's Not My Beat. What's up?
From the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome into a special edition of Take Command. Logan Paulsen there, Craig Hoffman here. And if you're watching in the middle of us, you see, that is Patrick Peterson. Pat P, our Odyssey Sports NFL insider and host with Andrew Filipponi of First and Pod, a podcast that we have extra disdain for this week because Pony's in Pittsburgh. That's just, because, that's my guy. But, it's a matchup thing this week. Pat, what's up, dude? Right. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. How you guys doing?
About the same. So obviously we wanted to have you on. Talking ball with you is always great, but especially – hey, we need someone to talk about a big cornerback acquisition. Well, who better than you? What'd you make of the Marshon Lattimore trade yesterday, just when you first heard about it and as you've kind of looked at it in the hours since it went down?
Yeah, when I first heard about it, this was a move that the thought that first came to my mind was the Washington Commanders are locked in on a championship run. I feel like They have all the pieces on the offense. They can score with anyone. Now they need that shutdown corner that's going to be able to slow down teams' passing attack, which they're going to start to get into, which in divisional play, going up against Atlanta and teams moving forward. So I thought this was a great move for them and their young secondary, for those young guys that learn from one of the best to ever play.
Yeah, so obviously he's a very good football player, and you were a very good football player, lockdown corner, maybe the best cornerback of your generation for a period of time. What does having a guy like that do for a secondary, and like how can the defensive coordinator maybe change how they call a game when they have a guy with that high-level skill set in the back end?
Yeah, when you have a guy that have that, that label of a cover corner, that just makes the defensive coordinator job that much easier. He's able to help other guys versus trying to play more zones than anything. It gives you the opportunity to be a little bit more aggressive. And we all know Dan Quinn is an aggressive coach, but he also plays a lot of cover three. So now it may give him an opportunity to play a little bit more man now, to be in the receiver's spaces a little bit more. So we're going to see, how this move end up helping their defense moving forward. But like I said, having a labeled cover corner, it just makes that defensive coordinator job that much easier to call plays, especially on third downs.
Yeah, I think we've seen that earlier in the year, the transition from kind of what they want to be to what they need to be for now. We can see how much that shifts back to the more aggressive calls we saw earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. My big question about this, Pat, is obviously how does he integrate in the middle of a season? You were with the same group of guys out in Arizona for a long time, and obviously we just had that benefit of continuity. Then later in your career, you moved around a little bit more. How hard is it, do you think, for Marshon to come in here in the middle of a season from both a learning the scheme standpoint and then the communication element, which we've seen is kind of the last missing piece in that Washington secondary, is they've had some of those miscommunications. So how hard is it to get on the same page as the rest of the guys?
Well, I never had an opportunity to go through a trade mid-season. So, and every team that I pretty much played for had to, went through training camp, OTAs, and mini camp and things like that. So I had time to really understand the scheme, understand the different terminologies. So it is going to be different for Marshon, but I'm sure that Dan and the defensive coordinator is going to try to make it as easy as possible for him. He's a guy that knows how to play man-to-man, so I know that won't be hard for him. It's just going to come down to when those guys are in man-to-man coverages, about the communication. If it's going to be a top hat, if it's going to be in and out, is it going to be we're taking number 3? That's where the communication for the most part is going to have to be at its best, because like you said, there have been some mishaps in the secondary, but now having a guy like Marshon that played in playoff games, meaningful games, he's a veteran, really can show these guys how much better you can be just communicating.
Yeah, and I'm not that super familiar with defensive back play, but how hard is it to learn a new scheme? Like, I know you kind of alluded to some of the stuff there in terms of communication, but when I do draft evals or when I do free agent evaluations of corners, it seems like one of the positions that's most influenced by scheme. Like, are you pretty confident that he'll be able to transfer? And I know in your career you had times where you switched defenses. How hard is that? And can everybody do it, I guess is my question.
I don't think everyone can do it, because you do have certain type of cornerbacks. You have guys who like to play man-to-man, like a Joey Porter. Mm-hmm. Do you have guys that can play off and really read the 2-step like a Asante Samuel? Read the 3-step like a Asante Samuel. So if, back in Arizona days, I was a man-to-man guy, so all of my defensive coordinators were man-to-man type of schemes. So that fit perfectly for me. And I came out of college into a man-to-man scheme versus going into a zone scheme. And it's different because when you're close to the line of scrimmage, you don't have to see anything else. You just have your eyes focused on this guy. When you're off, now you can pretty much see the entire field. Your eyes can get busy. You're not really dialed in on what you need to be dialed in on making the play on that given play. So it's a lot that goes into what guy fits into what scheme and how defenses or offenses want to call the plays.
So there's kind of this thought that cover 2 is cover 2, cover 3 is cover 3, and yeah, okay, we might have to cover 6 here, cover 8 there, whatever. Is that true though? Like the way I think we've seen this year that the Commanders' corners are playing cover 2, for instance, a lot better than they played it the previous year. So clearly, coaching matters on some level. But how much, how much is on the zone side of it? Cover 2 actually just cover 2, no matter where you are, versus different keys or whatever the coaching points are that might change staff to staff.
Yeah, it's definitely different terminologies because since I've been in the NFL, I done played in 3 different versions of cover 2. You know, you have some guys that likes to really reroute. We call it like a high school cover 2. Then you have guys that like you to read the number 2. So if the number 2 comes out to the flat, now you're playing a true flat technique. If he goes 5-yard in, now you're going to sink into the number 1 receiver. So that's a lot more reading that goes into that. Then we have a squat technique to where if you are reading number 2 and he does run inside, now you're not going to play a man-to-man. You're going to play like a trail technique, almost like a 2-man, but it will be the same thing if he was to run a 5-yard out. So then I'm basically trapping the out. So basically my responsibility is if number 2 doesn't come out, I got number 1 underneath, depending on which coverage. If it's the trap cover 2, if it's country cover, high school cover 2, if it's read cover 2. So there's that's where you have to be really dialed in on what assignment calls for what.
So Logan, just from watching the Commanders this year and then whatever film study you've done on Lattimore so far, like are those Venn diagrams overlapping circles, or do you think that he's got some new stuff to learn based off what he's been doing and what you've seen?
Yeah, so I do think like in New Orleans they do play like a cover 2. Everyone plays a cover 2. It's a little bit more of a read, and he does a good job with it. Here I think the Commanders do a little bit of both, and so again that's where I think coming to a new scheme is going to be somewhat interesting. And something I want to ask Patrick is have you seen in his game that he can make this transition easily? Because again, like he's playing man. Like he's always kind of known as a man corner. They haven't been playing as much man, in my opinion, in New Orleans as they have in years past. Like they've kind of shifted to zone. Is that because of him? Is that the defensive coordinator? And can he make this transition? And from what the stuff you've seen,
I think just the league have changed with the way they're moving and designing plays to get guys open. So it's very tough now to really play man to man the whole game. Like you have to give your corners breaks at some point. And if you want them to perform at their best when you need them, which is the fourth quarter, so that's why you rarely see marquee matchups now. Like you'll see it every now and then. It's just teams, offensive coordinators are too good on scheming their guys up and running your guy around the field, to kind of tire you out to help their guy end up flourishing. Because I never forget when I had those matchups, like a Julio Jones, for an example. Julio Jones played majority of the game, by the way. Not saying this is just an example. I never forget playing Julio Jones. He runs like a slant, breaks it up. I don't even remember who the backup receiver was. They bring the backup receiver in to just run a 9-ball, just run him off. Bring Julio back in because that's my matchup.
Oh, interesting.
Bring Julio back in and run a dig or something like that. So it's those type of things that I think that goes into today's game because, when I play, it was much different. It wasn't as many formations than it is now. So I think now just these offensive coordinators have got way too creative, and defensive coordinators are like, we'll just take our chances. We'll give our guy his chances on him, but it won't be like a 90% game type of matchup. That's just my opinion. That's just where I see it going.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It reminds me of my favorite Belichick story. Logan, I think we've told this one before on the pod when he the first time he ever faced Vince Wilfork after Wilfork left, they just changed personnel groupings every single play to make Wilfork run on and off the field, the field. So that makes total sense. And the thing is, in watching a little bit of tape yesterday on Lattimore, he was lined up almost exclusively on the right side of the field. Yeah. And I was curious, Pat, from your experience, is that kind of like a hitter in baseball, for lack of a better thing, where it's like, I'm just more comfortable over here? Is it a field, is the similarity of playing one side of the field versus, hey, I'm always the field corner versus the boundary corner, which I think is more how Washington has kind of done it this year. How do you think about that part of the translation for a guy that's kind of been in one geographic spot going to a defense that looks like it moves guys around based off something else?
Man, I don't think it'll be a problem just because, Lattimore was a guy who had an opportunity to draw those matchups throughout his career. So he had to move around the field majority of the game. So I think that won't be a problem. That's just how it was for me as well when I got to Minnesota. Like, I was a guy who bounced traveled all around the field. My first year with Zimmer, then he wanted me to be the right corner, but I didn't have a problem with it because I played right corner, 50% of my career. I played left corner 50% of my career. So I had experience on both sides. So I don't think it'll be a problem for Lattimore moving forward if they are moving him to the field or the boundary.
And so, like, I have no idea, and maybe you don't either. Like, what's the timetable for someone learning a defense like this? I know you said you kind of had the training camp window, all that kind of stuff to lay out. But have you been around guys or had experiences where DBs have been able to come in, learn a defense, and play within 7 days? Or is that
perhaps 2 games in 8 days since they play the Eagles next Thursday?
Yeah, our coverages, because like offensive guys, you can kind of give them a package. Defensive linemen, it's like those guys are. It's the easiest job on the field, but like corner, like what is the expectation here?
I think he'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think he'll be okay. But just because I've known guys who was in a Dan Quinn, defense, it is. It can be quite complicated to offenses, and frustrated to offenses, but it's pretty player friendly, So I don't think he'll have any issue on getting down pat. The defense is just going, like I said, just going to come down to the terminology, especially when they get in the red zone, because that's when majority of the talking have to come, the red zone and third down. So just going to come down to him and the guys on the back end, him putting that extra time in with the coaches on getting the communication down pat.
One last thing I wanted to ask you on the Lattimore trade, and then we definitely want to talk to you a little bit about the Steelers as well, as you were obviously there last year and kind of how Mike Tomlin does his thing and all of that. Is what is the drop off in having to guard a number 1 every week and be a number 1 corner versus being a number 2? Because we've seen Benjamin St-Juste really compete at a high level this year, but picked up a lot of penalties, had some plays made on him, and now he gets to drop into that number 2 spot. What is the difference that having Lattimore in town has on St-Juste? How would you describe that drop off from being a number 1 to a number 2 corner?
I won't necessarily call it a drop off because you need 2 corners if you want to be good in this league, if you want to be able to compete in this league, because not this year is not really proven that, but we all know that it's a passing league, so you need guys who can cover. So I don't necessarily say that it's a drop off. I think it's going to give him an opportunity to learn from a guy who had a ton of success in this league, learn from a guy who understands how important it is to study the little things. So I think this is a plus for him, moving forward in his career, if you want to look at it that way, because at the same time, you're still going to get opportunities. The ball's still going to come your way. What are you going to do with those opportunities? So, like I said, I don't see this as a drop off from number 1 to number 2. We all know what Lattimore is. As long as St-Juste know who he is and be true to himself, and just go out there and continue balling. All this did was made our secondary that much better.
The other thing is, I've talked to a couple like DB coaches around the league, and they brought up what you said there. It gives everybody in the room someone to learn from. And I was wondering if you had an example maybe from your career where someone taught you something that you were able to carry on and maybe pass on other people. And just because, for tight ends, it's like, oh, this is how you run this route, or this is the position of the hands when you block. Is there something that you learned from a veteran? You're like, oh man, I carried that with me and it really helped me out. Like, as an example of how secondary play can be elevated from a veteran.
Man, Adrian Wilson, I was blessed to be his teammate for 2 years. He was like the OG when I was drafted there in Arizona in 2011. So just him teaching me how to study film and understand formations, understanding the splits and things like that. So when he ended up leaving my 3rd year, which was my first year being a captain, Bruce Arians' first year, and I was like, all right, now the keys is kind of mine. I have to, pass on the same tools and the same information that was given to me, because I saw what it have done for my career. And I'm always a guy that want to see other guys succeed and be successful at what they want to, whatever, their dreams or aspirations are as well. So, you can ask any of my teammates. It was never a moment that I felt like I wasn't trying to give back or get the best out of them.
On the Tomlin front, I look at what Mike has done in Pittsburgh, and it's obviously incredibly impressive, never having a losing record. But it's not like he is one of these Kyle Shanahan, like super detailed offensive coordinator types. Like, he has done it with leadership and discipline and all these things. And I look at what Dan's done here and how he's built a culture so quickly in DC. And I think there's something to that. But you've lived it. When you got to Pittsburgh and you saw the way Mike Tomlin operates, what stood out to you that explains why he's been so successful?
Just everything you just said, his leadership, just the way Coach conduct his business each and every day. It just demands excellence, man. You can't do nothing but respect that. And like I said, each and every day you walk in that building, you know exactly what you're going to get from Coach Tomlin. Each and every day, the building can be on fire. It's going to be the same Coach Tomlin, and he's a guy that's not afraid to have those hard conversations. And, he's not a guy that's not afraid to make those tough decisions. And that's why he's still the Pittsburgh Steelers coach. He's going to be there forever. Just signing a new extension coming into this season, and he just knows how to galvanize a team and put together a winning product each and every time they step out on the field, regardless what the circumstances are. So that just speaks volumes on the man Coach Tomlin is, and I had the honor and the privilege to be with him last year.
Yeah, I think fans they hear like, oh, he's a great leader, but it's hard to like contextualize that. Do you have maybe, because you played for some really good head coaches, guys that are kind of classified as being good leaders. Like, do you have an example maybe of something that he does or did with a player that you said, oh, this is why he is who he is, and everybody's aspiring to be more like Tomlin?
I have a couple. Just one of them, I remember my first training camp practice, raining training camp. And, everywhere I've been when it rained, we're going inside. And not, mind you, like I'm just going with the flow. I'm not the one complaining or anything like that. But Coach just said, before we even start stretching, Coach walking down the hill, he said, hey, bring it up. Everybody bring it up. Took his glasses off. He said, y'all see this? He was like, yeah, we see this, Coach. Look like the sky's about to fall right now. Yeah, we see this. He goes, get your mind right, because I'm getting you prepared for when it happens. It won't be our first time seeing it. It won't be our first time feeling the rain, feeling a slippery ball, feeling the wet grass. Like, I want you guys to be prepared for it when that opportunity presents itself. And I be damned, Baltimore Ravens, the last game of the year, it was almost this identical weather that we had in training camp. So that's one of them. Another one, man, when we was on our losing streak, we had lost like 3 in a row, and we needed to win the last 3 games to get into playoffs. And we needed help as well. I think we needed Jacksonville or somebody to beat the Colts, I think.
Yeah.
So we're on a 3-game losing streak, and Coach walks into the building, and it's snowing outside. It's a gray day. And you know how those days can be, it can kind of weigh on everybody.
Yeah.
Not Coach. Coach walking that joint, he was like, man, I don't know what y'all on right now, but I love football, man. Like football is my livelihood. Like, I do anything for football. You know what I mean? And just was really asking the guys a question like, how much you love football, right? And not really asking guys, each guy in the room, but it was just like a statement. And I just felt a different team when we went out to practice. And we was going through a quarterback controversy. Not a quarterback controversy. We were going through quarterback rotations because we really wasn't set on who the quarterback was going to be moving forward. But Mason ended up, being the savior for us and winning those 3 games and getting us into playoffs. But those are just small stories, man. I got plenty of stories when we was in training camp, mini camp. I mean, he got the best sayings in the world, so the guy's a freaking walking book, man.
That's good stuff. Real quick, as we're running short on time, just any quick thoughts on any key matchup or thing that you're thinking about with this Commanders-Steelers game this weekend that you think could tilt the game one way or another?
It's going to be a great game, man. I really do. It's going to come down to Washington's offensive line versus the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive front. I think that's where it's really going to come down to. Pittsburgh has a history of playing mobile quarterbacks. They know how to contain mobile quarterbacks, and they also do a great job of putting pressure on the offensive line. So and with Terrell Austin, one of the best defense coordinators in the game right now, with dialing up pressures, trying to confuse the quarterback as well. So it's gonna come down to how long can the Washington Commanders offensive line protect Jaden Daniels?
We'll find out on Sunday. It's a 1:00 kick on CBS. And then, of course, reaction to that game and every single other one. That's what they do on First and Pod. Patrick Peterson and Andrew Filipponi. Pat, always great to talk to you, man. Really appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us here on Take Command.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
And Logan and I'll be back with our full preview tomorrow. Tomorrow here on the show, we are going to have Patrick's co-host on First and Pod, Andrew Filipponi, who, on top of hosting that national NFL podcast for us here at Odyssey, is the afternoon drive host out in Pittsburgh at 93.7 The Fan. So Pony and I are going to chat before the show tomorrow. We'll play that for you because, he's going to be on live same time we are. So we're going to chat tomorrow and then air that for you tomorrow at 5 o'clock here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, it is a weekly tradition. 5:30 over there behind Anthony is the Wheel of Mediocre Punishment. We're going to figure out who spins it next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And, of course, if you ever miss any part of the show, you can check us out in the Hoffman Show podcast feed. Just search the Hoffman Show in your favorite podcast app. All right, it's Wednesday. It's 5:30. That means it is time for us to hit Competition Wednesday. Each and every week, we pick 3 games against the spread, and then we pick a 4th game head-to-head against the spread. So, in other words, I pick my 3 games, Anthony picks his 3 games, and if we need a tiebreaker, we have one in reserve where we go head-to-head to ensure that we don't have a tie. Housekeeping before we reveal this week's results, which, Anthony, I do not know to this point still. I don't know if you've cheated and looked ahead, but I have not looked to see how we did this week. I owe you from last week, and we still owe the show an ice bath. The logistics of the ice bath have been a little more difficult than perhaps we anticipated. But we owe the show an ice bath. Each of us have gotten that on the Wheel of Mediocre Punishment. I forgot last week that I owed you a fantasy sub, and unlike the first time that you lost and had to have me do that, you did not remind me. So right now, I'm going to look at your fantasy team because I need to figure out who I want to sit out on your team this week. Is your lineup set the way you want it, first of all? It looks like it should be, with maybe the exception of quarterback.
Maybe not. All right, here we go. It looks pretty. Oh yeah, I'll definitely take Bo Nix out and put my man Kirky in.
Tell you what, let's just make it easy on you. How about you don't?
You sure? All right.
Yeah, you got Bo Nix against Bo Nix against Kansas City instead of Kirk Cousins against New Orleans. That should be painful for you.
Yeah. I mean,
Especially
I'm not gonna
now
lie. The rest of my team does look good, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I could go. You don't have a running back to sub out because I'm not allowed to put a guy on a bye weekend. I mean, I could do something like DeMario Douglas in for one of your receivers. Like that would definitely be painful. But I think I'm going to change your starting quarterback. I think I'm going to go Bo Nix against a good Kansas City defense.
Yeah, he's going to struggle, man.
And then Cousins against a now Marshon Lattimore-less sinking ship of a Saints team.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. Just, had to do one of them.
I'd rather that than an additional ice bath.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough. Anthony really just does not want.
I'm not looking forward to that
the ice
at
bath.
all, Mr. Hoffman.
No, you're not. You're very scared of it, and which should push me to want to actually do it, where I can show you up a little bit. That makes me feel like there's a chance that I'm like the whole time too, because it's an ice bath and some of it's involuntary. Okay, so with that, let's see how we did in week 9, and then take a break, come back, and week 10 is on. So, Anthony, to get things started, last week, I decided just to go for it on Thursday Night Football like an absolute just moron. I picked the Houston Texans as 2-point favorites over the New York Jets. They lost. That's 0-1 for your boy.
Should I be clapping?
It's up to you. I wouldn't clap too long, though.
I know, because I had some bad picks. I think I did. One of my picks was the Chiefs.
No. Oh, yeah, it was the Chiefs. That was the Chiefs, who did not cover.
Yeah, they barely won.
Yeah. Which means, by the way, that should be here.
I don't know why I keep doing that. I should listen to you more often, Craig.
You definitely should. By the way, that means Tony went 11-3-1 against the spread last week.
He's ridiculous.
Our first impression selection show that I do YouTube only Mondays with Tony Squares. Tony went 11-3-1.
And he's currently undefeated.
I went 9-5-1, which should be a good week. He went 11-3-1. Yes, he is undefeated in our fantasy league too. Yeah. Anthony, the more I scroll here, the more I think you had a very bad week, sir. Your first game was the Chicago Bears, who were 1-point favorites at Arizona. They lost.
By 20.
By 20. That's just double checking the math. That's not a cover.
No, it's not.
Nope.
Golly.
Next up for me, I picked the Carolina Panthers, who were 7.5-point dogs at the time against the New Orleans Saints. They won
Outright.
They did not just cover, they won. Which next year we're going to do a point system. If you pick underdogs and you get an underdog, that's a bonus point. This year it's just did you win or not. They won. That's 1-1 for me. Anthony, your next game. This might be close actually. Your next game, you picked the Los Angeles Rams, who were 1.5-point favorites against the Seattle Seahawks. And thanks to getting that game into overtime and winning on a walk-off touchdown, they covered.
Let's go.
So going into the final set of games here, we are both 1-1, but
you must have did good in your third game.
That's so it went horribly wrong now, didn't it? Because the Detroit Lions were 3.5-point favorites, Anthony.
And they won by?
More than 3.5. Correct?
No.
Anthony.
They won by 3.
You're joking, right?
Serious.
Packers did not bring it back that close.
Oh, no, they won by 10.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact final score, but I do not remember it being a field goal game. Nope, that was a 24-14 Lions win. That is a cover for me. And as you foreshadowed earlier, the Chiefs did not cover their 9-point spread against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They should have.
That's a 1-2 for you. Just in case, though, Anthony, you had hit the Monday Night Football game, you would have lost the tiebreaker. Because I had Washington -3.5. You thought it was going to be closer against the Giants. It was a 5-point spread.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was going to be 3.
I think that game, by the time kickoff happened, got to 5.5 in some places. So it really kind of sucks if you wound up on the wrong end of that.
Ow.
What is going on with the music right now? You hearing this?
Yeah. It's going in and out.
Yeah, I don't like that. We're just going to kill the music for the moment. So we're bringing the energy on our own, baby. That is a 2-1 week for me. That is a 1-2 week for Anthony, meaning that for the third straight week?
Yeah, basically since I clowned you for losing 2 straight weeks of these picks of Competition Wednesday, I've been on the
week 7, week 8, week 9.
It's been 4 weeks.
That's at least 4 weeks that I've been keeping track of over here. Yeah, it's been 4 weeks.
No, because you got ice bath one of those weeks.
Yeah, that must have been week 5.
So I got ice bath, 2 fantasy,
and then this is the 4th week in a row.
Dang! Oh, I got.
So Anthony, get that wheel set up, sir. Yep. You wheel it over closer to you. Let's make sure that I can see it, which I have to do on camera. I can't actually look through the window. There's too many things blocking. So the wheels on the chair are broken. Now Anthony's found a way. As a reminder, on the wheel of mediocre punishment, a fantasy sub, 100 push-ups, extra hot wings. That's supposed to be medium hot wings. Costume show. Buy the other person lunch. Do you owe me lunch?
No.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. Don't ask like it's a ridiculous question. And I think that's everything. So, Anthony, without further ado, the wheel of mediocre punishment. Give that sucker a spin, why don't you? Anthony, hold on. No. Stop everything. I see. No, whatever it lands on. I saw that. I have the video. You were on full screen, one shot and everything. Anthony, your right hand was guiding the wheel. I saw that.
No, it's holding it up. It's falling over here.
I don't believe it.
It landed on fantasy sub again.
Which we said we were going to take off the freaking thing. You're spinning it again because I thought I saw that your hand was still guiding that wheel.
I was holding it up. That's what I was doing. I was holding it up.
All right. One more time.
Hold on. See? It was falling again.
Yeah, okay, that's compelling evidence on your end. The wheel of mediocre punishment, boys and girls. It is a mediocre wheel. All right, are you ready? All right. Go. It has landed on Ice Bath again. Oh, Anthony Hades' nightmare has come true. He now owes the show 2 ice baths.
Can I spin it again?
No.
Craig, the first time I spun it, it landed on something that was supposed to be taken off the board. We don't know what that
So when you spun it a second time, that's your spin.
Or should
we come up with another punishment, but we haven't yet.
Should we just do whatever we end up coming up with?
I'll say this. If you're watching on the YouTube chat right now, or someone can call in with a good idea before the end of the next commercial break that I like better than what we have on the board right now, then perhaps we will consider. If not, Anthony, here's the way we would do it. You would do your first ice bath, get out. I would do mine, and then you'd go back in. That's probably how we would just do it, to get it knocked out in one day.
Yeah, we'll have to do it in one sitting, yes.
Yeah, so that's better than having to fear doing it twice.
Or if I wanted to, could I just do 6 straight minutes?
I guess.
Is that hard to do?
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
They're both different versions. I feel like doing one and then the other, because the second one's not going to be as bad because you will have some sense of expectation.
Yeah.
If you were to just gung-ho 6 minutes the first time, that's going to be some of the longest 6 minutes of your life. All right, let's nix trending here, Ant. Production note, saying the stage directions out loud. But when we get back, we will pick next week's games for Competition Wednesday, and then Katherine Terrell talking about Marshon Lattimore. She's the ESPN Saints reporter joining us at 6 o'clock. ESPN Saints reporter Katherine Terrell joins us coming up at 6 p.m. here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. But it is Competition Wednesday here on the show. And our competition is we pick NFL football games against the spread. I pick 3. Anthony picks 3. The loser has to spin the wheel of mediocre punishment next week. And Anthony, the bad news is nobody came up with any ideas, so ice bath number 2 is on the docket for you.
Oh my gosh. What are you guys doing in the comment section, man?
Not paying enough attention.
I see.
They're just waiting for Katherine Terrell. They want more Marshon Lattimore talk, but it'll be there. We're getting to it here in just a few minutes. But okay, I am gonna start with a game that scares the bejesus out of me. But I'm gonna do it, and I'm just gonna go for it. Monday Night Football, which also extra sucks because then I have to wait. Not that we typically remember what we picked by the time Sunday rolls around anyway. We're so focused on the Commanders, and then it's like, what did we do last Wednesday? But the Los Angeles Rams are merely 1-point favorites over the Dolphins. I know the Dolphins looked better with Tua back last week. He only had 3 incompletions the entire day, but then they lost to the Bills. But the Rams are good, and the Dolphins are not. And it's a 1-point game. A 1-point spread. And that is the kind of thing that should make you run for the hills and run the other way. And maybe someday I'll learn better, but that day is not today. I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams merely -1. This game opened at 2.5. It's down to 1.
I like that pick for you.
For me, or like you think that I'm going to miss it?
No, I think you're going to hit it.
Okay.
I think you're going to hit it.
All right. You're up next.
I'm going to go with the Sunday night football game between the Lions and the Texans. And I think the Lions are going to go out there and destroy the Texans. CJ not having a line up front, not having weapons, it's sort of it's giving Bryce Young last year.
Let's ease.
All right,
it's
all right,
not that
I might
bad.
be a little hyperbole. But I don't think he
bad.
looks good without his weapons. He doesn't have any weapons. And his offensive line is getting beat like a drum. So it's tough to really be productive if you don't have that. So I think the Lions go out here. And the Lions are just playing some of the best football of any team in the NFL, outside of the Ravens.
Yeah, this was a game that I definitely had circled. This was a game that I 100% thought is possible. So that's a good pick out of you. I just don't love a lot of games this week. Sometimes I feel really good about them. I said this last week, too. Sometimes I feel pretty good. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. And then there's like teams, there's like the Tennessee-LA game. The Chargers are like 8.5-point favorites.
Yeah.
But the Titans stink. So I don't want to pick the Titans. I don't want to do that to myself. So I'm not. I'm simply not. I am going to go. There's 2 games with a lot of bad football teams playing, and I can't decide which one I want. Either Giants, Carolina, or New England, Chicago. Yeah. Screw it. I'm going New England, Chicago.
Ooh, okay.
The Bears, who might be in the midst of a free fall. They might rally this week, and it might get real ugly, and maybe this will be a dumb pick. But the Bears, whose 4 wins have come against really bad football teams, and who are potentially one bad loss away from a mutiny of their coach, whose defense finally broke last week, whose quarterback is upset because he got hurt at the end of the game last week, are 6.5-point favorites. No thanks. No thanks at all. I'm taking Drake May and the New England Patriots plus 6.5. Why? Because it's the Bears who are and 6.5 points. And May's played all right. He's also thrown a ton of dumb interceptions, which is exactly what we thought we'd get from Drake May, especially early. But 6.5 points? Come on. Pats, make me proud.
You're bold, man. You're bold. But, Craig, I'm going to be just as bold as you.
Are you doing Carolina?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to be bold at all, actually. I'm going to take, and I should take the advice that you gave me last week. This is a big spread. But guess what, Craig?
Are you taking the Eagles?
I don't care. I'm taking the Eagles -7, man. And I think the Cowboys are about to get steamrolled. Even though Michael Parsons is back at practice this week.
That seems relevant.
Offensively, they don't have Dak. They don't have a run game.
Nope.
They might not have CD this game.
Nope.
I'm thinking the Eagles go out there and, for them Cowboys.
I think that's possible, which is why I'm staying. Despite the big spread, I'm staying away from this game. If I was going to pick a side, and I did on the First Impression Selection Show on Monday, it was 6.5 on Monday. It's up to 7 now. I picked Philadelphia.
Okay.
I think this is a chance that there's a massive blowout.
Yes, sir.
Again, I'm stuck between the bad football between the Giants and the Panthers in Germany and this other. I'm just going to go with the other game. Trevor Lawrence is banged up. The Jacksonville Jaguars turn the football over at an alarming rate, and the Minnesota Vikings turn people over at an alarming rate. Minnesota is at Jacksonville, where they are 4-point favorites. I think they can cover that 4. I think they win by a touchdown or more. I'm going Minnesota -4 at Jacksonville.
I love that game, Craig. That was the last one I was going to do, but it's okay.
Were you going to pick Jacksonville, or you were going to pick Minnesota too?
I was going to pick Minnesota.
Okay. You know we have never done it, but we are allowed to pick the same game.
Just Craig, it's not going to start today.
Okay.
You want to know why?
Because you are going with?
I'm going with the Steelers to cover against the Commanders.
Ooh, Ant's going villain mode. I may have picked the same thing on Monday.
This is a game. I think it's going to be a very good game between the Commanders and Steelers. This is my early prediction. Again, this is only Wednesday. We haven't really gotten into the X's and O's of the game. But right now, as I see it, I think the Steelers win on Sunday. That is my early predictions. Please don't kill me out there, guys. But this is my early prediction.
I think I'm going to wind up picking Washington straight up. I will know a lot more tomorrow after I talk to Logan about it on Take Command. I've started watching some Pittsburgh tape. I haven't watched any of their offense yet. Dude, their defense hits the bleep out of people. Oh, my God. Dude, it's very Commanders-ish. There's like the first play of the Jets game, Patrick Quinn tries to end Breece Hall's life on just a regular tackle in the hole. Like, the all 22 film is silent, and I still heard the thud. That's how hard those dudes hit. All right, we need quickly, so we can get to Katherine Terrell on time here. What's our tiebreaker game? Is there any other? Do you like? If I were to take Carolina plus 5.5 over the Giants, would you take the Giants?
Yeah, I'll take the Giants.
You would? Do you not? We can make it a different game.
I'll take the Giants.
Okay, I wanted that game the whole time.
Yeah.
Tie breaker. Let me just confirm that the number is now 5.5. Oh no, I hit the wrong button. Now I got too many tabs open. The Panthers, it's 6.5.
Yep. That's what I see.
Whew. Yeah,
okay.
I'm definitely taking Carolina plus 6.5.
Brian Burns' return game, man.
He's not returning anywhere. They're going to Germany.
Well, against his former team.
There you go. All right. That's our Competition Wednesday. We'll see how we did next Wednesday. Coming up next, more on Marshon Lattimore from someone who's covered him for his entire career. Katherine Terrell from New Orleans, ESPN Saints reporter, next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our pick 6 at 6, top headlines of the day from Command Land, will be in just a little bit because it is our pleasure right now to welcome to the show ESPN Saints reporter Katherine Terrell, who's obviously been covering Marshon Lattimore the last couple of years, and we wanted to get a little more insight on the Commanders' new addition. Katherine, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, how long do you think that Marshon Lattimore has been on the trade block down in New Orleans? And because one of the things that Adam Peters talked about today was that, we didn't know he was going to be available. We were scouting a bunch of guys, and then all of a sudden he's available. That's a pretty important part of it. What was kind of the breaking point for the Saints from their side of it that Lattimore actually became available for Washington in the first place?
Yeah, I think that there's this perception that the Saints fired their coach and decided they were just going to get rid of everybody. And I really don't think that's how this all went down. I mean, honestly, I think that Lattimore has been a potential trade target since last December, so almost a year now. The Saints did something very unusual. They restructured his contract in a way that opened up cap space, but also made it easier to trade them. And trade him, sorry. They were kind of cagey about it, but even in January, Mickey Loomis said, hey, we did that for a reason. And ultimately, Lattimore stayed on the team, but I think that the Saints kind of, after this happened, maybe they figured if we can still get a good offer for him, then we're going to take it. And I think they did get a good offer. So would they have done it if they were in contention? I don't know, but I think it's more of a long saga than a 24-hour knee-jerk reaction to firing their coach.
Katherine Terrell, ESPN Saints reporter with us here on the Hoffman Show. So that's how he winds up here. What is he? This is ultimately the question that I think most Commanders fans want to know. We know that he has been one of the best corners in the league. How close is he still to that? And what, if any, drop-off has there been from his absolute peak?
Yeah, I think that Lattimore is a very, very good corner. I think that if you look at the starts of last year and the starts of this year, he was great. And sometimes it's hard to know cornerback stats because when you actually break down Lattimore's numbers, they don't throw at him a lot. So how do you know if a cornerback's good if he's not being thrown at? I think the problem this year was that he had a hamstring issue that showed up in week 2. So that kind of, colors things. Last year he had an injury. And, he's kind of just been pretty unfortunate in the injury situation. A few years ago, it was a lacerated kidney, which is not really something you can prevent, obviously. But, I think that Commanders are still getting a very good player who is going to be a great starter for him. I think his starter for them. Man, I can't talk today. It's been a busy week. But I think his main issue is consistency and motivation.
So with that, he's coming into a team that is 7-2. He's got some old friends from Ohio State on the roster. How much do you think if 100% of Marshon Lattimore comes when he is 100% locked in, do you think simply the change in scenery, both the fresh start and the competitiveness, is enough to get him to that level, whatever he has left? Or is there something deeper there that maybe Adam Peters and Dan Quinn need to stay on top of?
I've seen changes in scenery work all the time. I think it's going to work for him. I think that he's going to be very motivated to prove himself, especially, as you said, with the team winning so much. I mean, when you talk about Lattimore being at the top of his game, motivation-wise, just go look at his record against Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans. Lattimore kind of has a history of when the competition is at the very top, he kind of rises to that. And sometimes on the opposite side, he plays down to competition maybe he doesn't think is as good. But, obviously, if you followed NFL, he and Mike Evans hated each other. And so Lattimore always played really well against them. So I think getting to this new scene and being on a team that obviously has a lot of excitement and players that have really bought in, I think that that's going to be really good for him.
Katherine Terrell, ESPN.com Saints reporter with us here on the Hoffman Show, giving the inside scoop on Marshon Lattimore. From a scheme standpoint, Katherine, how has the Saints scheme and their usage of Lattimore evolved? He's got a reputation as a man corner, but it can do more. So from someone who's been covering them the past couple of years, how many different kinds of, whether it's, I guess, how many different roles is probably the best way to ask it, has Lattimore played, and what are his strengths and weaknesses in them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. I think that occasionally, or I think they've often have Lattimore follow the top receiver. I don't think they've done that as much this year. Obviously, the defense has been a little in disarray overall. So I think the way they've used him has probably changed. But I think like I said, when you look back to last year and also the beginning of this year, the corners were considered the strength and backbone of a team that maybe had issues and maybe players aging at other places in the defense. So I kind of think that Lattimore's a guy that can probably do it all. You can have him follow the other team's top receiver, and I don't think that that's going to be a problem. I mean, maybe it sounds like I'm hyping him up, but I do truly think that he is a very good player still. And with the Saints, he had some issues with Dennis Allen and probably just needed a change of scenery.
No, I mean, I think that makes total sense, and it jives quite a bit with what I have heard from everyone else that's watched him with any level of closeness. Like, this dude is still one of the very best when he's locked in. Hopefully Washington gets a locked-in version of him. You would think so, based off the circumstances, and clearly the circumstances that you're reporting on daily down there are a little bit different. Last thing that I'll ask you real quick is, we know that he's dealing with a hamstring issue. He did not practice today. Washington's medical staff's taking a look. But what do you know about that hamstring issue? And if he was still there, and I was doing radio down there, hey, is Marshon Lattimore going to play this weekend? What would be your answer to that?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Again, forgive me. It's been a busy week. I cannot remember if that hamstring issue is the same as the week 2 one. I do know that against the Broncos, I believe he was ruled out of the game with a hamstring issue, but then he kind of stayed on the sidelines the whole time, which is a little surprising to see. Just obviously, if you have a hamstring issue, you kind of expect them to go sit down. Then he practiced fully the next week, and then maybe he tweaked it the following game. I don't know, but then he had to leave the game again. So I don't know the severity of it, but I'm going to assume if he passed the physical and everything's good, that it's probably not that bad of an issue. I mean, I'm kind of speaking for him, but it just seems like something that popped up, but ultimately is probably going to be okay. But again, I haven't gotten a chance to talk to him in a while, so that's just kind of me guessing.
Gotcha. No, that's good context, though, in terms of the timeline of everything and when it all went down. And they're listing him as day-to-day. Last major injury we were watching here was Jaden Daniels week to week, and then he played after missing 0 weeks. So
and played just fine.
Yeah, he's
Go Tigers.
There you go. Katherine, really appreciate the time. I know, again, it is such a busy week for everyone, and I know you're slammed, so really appreciate some time up here with us in D.C.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.
That is Katherine Terrell, everybody. You can read more of her work on the Saints if you want to know more about what's going on down there at ESPN.com. And again, appreciate her help in trying to understand who Marshon Lattimore is and some of the context on Washington's newest edition. More on Washington's newest edition next. That will be from the guys who acquired him. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn both spoke today. We will let you hear that next in our Pick 6 at 6. But first, it is time to get the latest from the world in women's sports, brought to you by Wawa. Gotta have a Wawa. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our pick six slightly delayed because of a great visit with Katherine Terrell, but without further ado, let's do it. It is time for our pick six.
Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick Six at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, let's get into it. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn both spoke today. So as we fire it up here, let's hear from the GM first.
Number 1.
And let's actually cut to the core of how this team is being built. We know that the struggle is, if we make a trade, you got to give up some draft capital. So how is Adam Peters finding that balance as he makes his first mega trade in terms of trading away draft capital after his first rookie class looks to be off to a tremendous start?
You're always trying to strike that balance, and I think, I'll give you a long answer, but really we were able to pick up some draft picks earlier this year, and we had a surplus. We had 9 picks, and so that made us feel a little more comfortable doing this. And then also you're looking at the landscape of this next year's draft, this next year's free agency class, and knowing that with some of our corners that are going to be coming up as free agents, that we're going to need to either re-sign one of those guys or dip into free agency or the draft. So you weigh all that, and then you see, okay, is this player better or easier to get than maybe a free agent or a draft pick? And so knowing all that, and then knowing that we had a couple extra picks, and we still feel really good. We still have 7 picks, and I think if you look at the charts, our picks are actually, what we have now is more in terms of points than what we had back in August. So we still feel really good about that. We have what's currently a really high 3rd round pick. We'll see how that ends. The season ends, but and that was one pick that we certainly didn't want to give up for this, and so long answer, but that's kind of how we looked at it.
There you go. So they made the calculation. Ultimately, they thought the best way for them to get a corner that was premier level was to make this trade. And so it does sound like there's some long-term plan for Marshon Lattimore potentially as well. Peters talked about another answer. We got to figure out the contract, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes. And they're going to want to see how he plays first. But they can move on if they want to. He's got no guaranteed money left. They can also keep him at the number that he's got the next couple of years. They could restructure and give him some guaranteed money, which he's definitely going to want, and potentially help themselves out with the cap number as well. As for the message this kind of sends to the rest of the NFL, that was a question for Dan Quinn today, and not just the NFL, but the fans in acquiring Marshon Lattimore.
I'll start with the fan base, because it's what I would tell the team first is, our rule on the team is protect the team. And our theme of our program is competition. And we're going to absolutely, relentlessly compete at everything. And that's a chance to make our team better, make you better, make the group better, like Adam and his group, or myself and the coaches. Like, we're going to dig in hard to do that. And so what does Marshon mean? He's a competitor. And so we're adding a real dog-ass competitor into a group of guys that like to fight and like to battle. And so to me, that's an extension of competing, to say we're not going to miss a moment, to add a competitor onto our team. And so that has nothing to do with the league. It's just about us, really. That's how I think of it.
And that fits right into the next main thing.
Number 2.
Which is not how it went down or the message that it sends, but that it went down at all. This is a team that's supposed to be in year 1 of a rebuild. Could Adam Peters have imagined this early taking a swing this big to say, like, hey, we're trading a 3rd rounder already, 9 games in at the trade deadline? Here is Adam Peters on that.
If we'd asked you September 1st, would you be likely to be adding a player or adding more picks at the deadline? What would you have thought?
I would have said we need to beat the Buccaneers. I think I think it goes back to if whether you're 9-0 or 0-9, you're always trying to do what's best for the team. And so if that adds up to adding a player that you can add that's really good, like Marshon, then you always consider it. And then if it's also trading a player away, then you consider that too. So you take them as they come, and I don't necessarily look at it as being a buyer or seller. I think just trying to do the best I can to help this team be as good as it can.
I think that's a fairly new school approach in the NFL, that you have teams that are traditionally sellers, that might still be sellers, but that can also be buyers, because often those teams have a ton of cap space. And so it's like, hey, we can give up a draft pick and get someone that we probably otherwise wouldn't get in free agency, get in their ear, give them a big fat contract, and be like, hey, you want to stay? And that's what the Bears did with Montez Sweat. I know the Patriots were poking around at doing that this year, and it's kind of what Washington did, except for they fit the profile for the bad teams, minus the record part. They're 7-2, but this is it becomes both in that case, right? This makes us better now. It also could help us solidify something that we need solidifying later, and so thus it is a very smart move.
Number 3.
As for the here and now of it all, Dan Quinn's got to figure out how to fit Marshon Lattimore into what they're doing. So what are the traits about the Saints four-time Pro Bowler, former Saints all-time Pro Bowler, that have Dan Quinn quite excited here in Washington?
Yeah, I think two, I'm going to say, David, if that's okay. One, I love the competitor to challenge. And that's what this league is made of finishing moments and games and plays and third downs. And so when you feel that player rise, even get a little taller and stronger in those moments, it's not hard to miss. You've seen it. And so that trait I know he has. I can't put a speed on it and I can't put a metric on it, but I know what it looks like. And then I would say from the physical side of things, the ability to stay attached and make contested catches hard and fight through them. And that is what playing really good DB is about. Obviously, sometimes you're playing zone and using vision, but when you got to attach and you got to play tight man-to-man to guard somebody to go win a down, you need to be able to stand strong and have confidence to do that, and Sean does.
I feel like there is a metric that we could put on the competitiveness, and that's the number of times that Marshon Lattimore has fought Mike Evans. That number's a lot. That he is competitive, he's nasty, he's everything that this team wants. But I think they're also going to rely on him. One of the things that's come up a lot in the last couple of days, especially with talking to former players, I think that's been interesting. Will Blackmon mentioned it. Patrick Peterson mentioned it both earlier on in the show today. The mentorship side of this. This is a guy that has been there, done that, played in playoff games. He's 28, so it's not like he's ancient, but he's been around the league for a hot second. So with guys like Mike Sanders still, Benjamin St. Juste, and even Noah Igbenogany still on the rookie deals or kind of within that first 4-year time frame, is there a responsibility or a wish for Lattimore to mentor some of those guys?
I think it'll probably go both ways because there's some scheme and some communication for Marshon to learn, and there's also some wisdom for him to pass on to go. And so that will happen organically as it goes, but the first order of business is obviously getting him on the same page with all of his teammates as quickly as we can. But those things happen over time. The more time you spend together, those are, meeting room times, road trips, and you just, start discussing it more. And so over time, that we'll expect that to happen.
And something that Charles Davis said yesterday, too, that can happen even more in a situation like this because Marshon Lattimore ain't got anything else to do. He's moving midseason. He's going to some apartment. He might bring his PlayStation or whatever, but he's mostly going to be in his playbook and hanging out with other guys on the team because he doesn't know anybody here unless he's got a bunch of friends in D.C. that just from elsewhere in life. But the chances are for a guy that's spent his entire career in one spot, a lot of new stuff. So the guys he's going to hang out with are his new teammates, which can be beneficial. Will he be hanging out with them on the field?
Number 4.
Adam Peters asked about Lattimore's hamstring injury that is still a worry as he gets where he continues to fight back to get on the field, hopefully as soon as this weekend.
Yeah, he does. He has a hamstring injury right now, and he just got in today, so we're just evaluating that. And in terms of due diligence, when you're doing a trade like this and there is a player that could be injured, our trainer will talk to their trainer. They'll allow us to get the medical records and all that so we understand the full picture, the full scope of the injury or just their injury history, really. And so we got all that information and really just taking it day to day and he won't practice today, so you won't see him out there today. But we'll just take it day by day and put him out there when he's ready.
Take it day by day. Okay, got it. Very Adam Peters, very Dan Quinn. But they did their due diligence, and he passed the physical. So clearly they don't think there's anything too wrong in the long term.
Number 5.
Speaking of doing due diligence, there are 4 players on this roster who have played with Marshon Lattimore before. They are all members of the 2014 Ohio State recruiting class, which is it meant that Adam Peters had some calls to make before making this deal.
All those guys that we have in our locker room, that Ohio State guys, they're legit dudes, and you trust their opinion, and I think it would be probably not, I'm going to say foolish, but I think you'd be missing something if you didn't ask them, and they had something to tell you that you should have known before you made the deal. So I'll keep those conversations private, but yeah, we definitely tapped into that, and everything was good. I can tell you that.
You don't say. You made the trade. So whatever the details were, clearly it worked out in the Commanders' favor.
Number 6.
And oh, by the way, we spent so much of the show on this trade. They have a huge game this weekend. That's where we're going to spend a lot of the show the next couple of days, including a visit with our pal, our pal, Andrew Filipponi. Those words just started to mush together. Couldn't stop it. Runaway freight train. Out of control. But Pony, the Pony Express. See, we brought it all together, everybody. Pony's going to join us tomorrow on the show from 93.7 The Fan. But what does Dan Quinn see, specifically when he looks at Russell Wilson? Because this has been a brand new offense. They are, a lot of people had a lot of consternation in the media, myself included, to be totally honest, about moving away from Justin Fields. Like, they were playing really well. The run game was going, even if Fields wasn't killing it. They're putting up 30 pieces with Russ at quarterback. He's cooking. So what does Dan Quinn see when he sees Wilson in black and gold?
Yeah, and the thing that when I think about Russ, the first thing that pops to my mind is this is a remarkable deep ball thrower. And it's what he has absolutely earned and been known for down inside and outside the pocket, where he's got the ability to be able to throw on the run, 50, 60 yards down the field to a spot that only, his receiver can get to it, or off a big play pass. So that, to me, is what, sets him apart, is he's got a, strong arm, big hands. He can absolutely rip it, but it's the downfield big shot plays. When those explosive plays happen, those are game changers, and that's what I think Russ's superpower is. Like, deep ball accuracy is not everybody has that.
Obviously, Dan knows Russ very well from their time together in Seattle. He had to practice against him every day, and that deep ball element of extending plays and just, hey, he'd be great here in a sense. Hey, screw it, Terry's down there somewhere. That's how Russ is with George Pickens. It's how he was with Tyler Lockett. It's how he was with somebody in Denver, I'm sure. But he generally just plays never dead. Receiver that's down there, he's open. And you got to stay sticky throughout the entire down. And what I appreciate about Dan at the podium is he doesn't care if the other team knows some of what the talking points are in the building, because either you do them or you don't. And he'd rather everybody know, everybody from every piece of messaging be the same. Fellas, this week, deep balls, got to make sure we're on top of it. We'll talk about that much more over the next couple of days. That's our Pick 6 for now. Biggest storylines of the day, biggest sound bites of the day, every day at 6 o'clock. Up next, we're actually wrapping up the show because we got Georgetown Hoops coming for you at 7 o'clock. Pregame at 6:45. Real things, real people said into real microphones. Next. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up as we have Georgetown basketball coming at you in just a few minutes. What do we got, Ant? We got one of these. Is that what it looks like? On the old Alski?
Actually, we don't even have a hard out today.
Okay. I can talk forever.
I'm joking. We do have a hard out.
Okay. Definitely can't talk.
This is going to be
Forever.
43.
Okay. All right. So we got about 8 minutes left in the show. If you missed any part of the show, and I do mean any part of the show because the thing started with a pop bang fizz today with Will Blackmon calling us literally right at 4 o'clock. So that was a really great chat. So we got that at 4 o'clock. We had Patrick Peterson with me and Logan at 5. Katherine, Terrell, ESPN Saints reporter at 6. We had a very fun time with Competition Wednesday. Maybe perhaps me a little bit more than Anthony. Sorry. At 5:30. I'm just telling people what happened on the show, Anthony. They should go listen to the podcast. And then a great pick 6 at 6.
I would have thought you would have learned from me, Craig. You know, when you rub it in, the amount of times.
Not rubbing it in. I'm just saying what happened.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Maybe a little bit.
I was about to say just a tad bit.
Just a little bit. Now I'm going to rub it in. It's been 4 weeks, bro.
I know I'm going to get it together.
Okay.
Eventually.
I have faith in you.
Yeah.
I have faith in you. A couple of those, you had really good weeks. There's also this week.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll bounce back, man. I learned to listen to you, even though, again, this week I didn't listen to you. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me in the behind.
We'll see.
But it's Dallas, so.
We shall see. All right, tomorrow on the show, I'm going to go ahead and pencil in 4:30 tomorrow. We got an Olympic gold medalist. How about that? That sound good, timing-wise?
Yes, sir.
Rather that than 6:30?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. 1/3 of Triple Espresso, leader of your Washington Spirit, hometown, Trinity Rodman. I spoke with Trin a little bit earlier today. We will get that for you tomorrow, talking about all kinds of different stuff around her national team experience with the Olympics this summer, and then obviously heading into this weekend where we have the NWSL playoffs at Audi Field on Sunday. Trin and the Spirit taking on Bay FC. So we talked about a whole bunch of different stuff with Trinity Rodman, and you can hear it tomorrow at 4:30. Andrew Filipponi will join us tomorrow as well. Great host out of Pittsburgh. He also hosts the national show First and Pod with Patrick Peterson, who joined us today. So Pony will join us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Never read the comments. I wonder there's like literally hundreds of comments that I've got to get through. I don't know how I'm going to get through them all.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot for sure.
Are
the vast majority Marshon?
Although I don't know how many of them are like, the vast majority are, but it's like, yeah, that's not never read the comments. Some of them are pretty easy to scroll by. Like, I'm happy that people are leaving them. It's just, it's not, I have to be like, do we want to put that one in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo! Go Pat P. Benjamin St. Juice poop emoji. Delete. Just kidding. I don't delete comments unless they're really nasty. I don't do that. Pick 6 at 6. You'll hear from Joe Witt Jr. and Cliff Kingsbury. So we are definitely loaded up tomorrow. Anything else from the housekeeping standpoint, Anthony? Don't think about it too hard.
No, I think that's everything.
All right. Well, in that case, then, I feel like it's still a little early. Maybe not. It's time for Real Things Real People Said in Real Microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All righty. So, Anthony, was this Shane Beamer or is this a basketball thing this weekend?
This was the head coach of the football team.
Okay, that's what I thought. You have this labeled as win over Clemson. They played Clemson this past weekend? No way. Because they typically play the last... Look, this is personal for me because I grew up in the Carolinas. That was always a big weekend.
Oh, it wasn't Clemson.
I was about to say, they definitely didn't play Clemson this past weekend. That's always the last game of the season. I know college football has mostly been ruined. I don't think that's been ruined yet.
They had a huge one. Texas A&M.
Okay. That's a little more like it.
I read something wrong.
After it happens to the best of us. After his team's big win over not Clemson, Texas A&M this weekend.
15th ranked.
University of South Carolina coach Shane Beamer had to sing to his wife because it was her birthday. They did not sing happy birthday.
All right, last one right here. Then we're going to break it down. My wife, Emily, I know you're in the back. Come on up here, Em. All right. She's got a birthday coming up this week. All right. So it's a great birthday for her. Great birthday present. I told my kids all week that if we won this football game, all right, I was going to do a little celebration for her here in the locker room. Right. I'm going to need y'all's help, but we ain't singing happy birthday. Don't think it's that, all right? I know y'all sing this song at practice, so I'm going to need a little backup right here. But this is her little birthday. Hit it, Big Mike.
What's happening to me? And the means and what it means. I put my head on a pillow. I'm staring at the window. Trying to stop to the side. There's a reason why. You're always on my mind. You're gonna run just now when I see you.
Yo, that was so crazy. I did not expect that at all.
Not what you thought coming. I love the hit it, Big Mike.
Funny story, Craig. So I sang that exact same song at a lip sync battle with my frat brothers. So that made it even more funny because I'm like, oh my God, people love this song by Fantasia. Love it.
So good. Also, there's just you get enough guys singing like that.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna hit the ad libs. And it's all of a sudden you hear something kind of in the middle. Someone peeled off and was like, "Hey!" Like everyone's gonna do their part.
Yeah.
And that's Anthony. You know what that is? That's a sign of leadership.
Real leadership.
Leadership. Everyone knowing their roles. That's a well-coached football team. Happy birthday to Emily Beamer, and well done, Shane Beamer. Of course, son of the great Hokie legend Frank Beamer, down there at South Carolina. All right, that's our show for today. We've done enough talking. The Hoyas are playing Lehigh. Pre-game is next here on the Team 980. Don't forget, tomorrow, Filipponi, Trinity Rodman, lots of Commander Steelers talk. Going to be a good show. Missed any part of today, check out the podcast. That's it. That's all. See ya.